Welcome everybody back to Therapreneur Conversations with Amber and Tamara. We are going to be talking today about how competition is an illusion. So Tamara came up with this topic and then we both had lots to say on it. So I'm going to just kick it over to you to start. Where did you even come up with the idea for that topic?
Hello, welcome. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here. It's lovely to be hanging out with Amber again. And I recently went to an in-person conference, and it was an addiction conference. I'm an addictions therapist, and there are lots of treatment centers, and they all have stands and tables. And someone was talking to me about, like, you kind of have a stand and it's amongst all your competition. And I was thinking, but that's not true. It's just the idea that everybody who does something similar to you is competition doesn't feel true for me. And the reason that doesn't feel true for me is because I know that when I started my private practice, I didn't just follow one person. I followed everyone I could find, and I got all the information I could find. And slowly over time, I built relationships and I decided like who I kind of aligned with. But at the start, like, I followed all the practice builders. And so, everybody's different and there's space for everybody. And just because I sign up for one thing doesn't mean there isn't space in my inbox for someone else. So that's where the idea came from. What are your thoughts on that, Amber?
Totally agree. And I'm sure we can add nuance to this as we go. But the primary premise, I totally agree with. I was just telling Tamara that I had a coaching call yesterday, and I don't ever know what those calls are going to be about until about 30 minutes before, when I open up the paperwork. I opened up the paperwork and she's like, I want to build a business teaching people to build their therapy practices. And it would have been easy for me to be like, I don't want to teach you how to do what I do. I'm just adding more competition. But it didn't feel that way at all, because I know, like, we all have a very different vibe. And so when I met with her, she had such a distinct brand voice. Really, what I'm saying there is like value system. And it was so clear that the way that she would sell things is her personality. And her personality and my personality and your personality are just different. I feel like the clearer your values are, the easier it is to distinguish yourself from other people. And yeah, when people get freebies, they're going to get them from me, from you, from her, because they're in that early phase. But over time, they're going to resonate with one of us more than another. And if our goal is to elevate therapists so that they can live better lives and be better clinicians to their clients, then don't we want them to have options about who to work with so that they have the best opportunity to get to where they want to go? I do. That's what I would like.
I so agree. And the word options really strikes me, because I don't want anyone choosing to follow me or buying from me because they don't have options.
Yes. Yes.
That doesn't feel good for me. That's the same in my practice, it's the same in my private practice. I do not want people doing therapy with me because they don't feel like they have options. I always want them to feel that they are making an active choice. Yes. And that we're a great fit. And it's the same when we sell things, so I really love that. And I think that's an important word to hang on to with this.
Yeah. And just kind of selfishly, I had someone buy one of my courses once. And I mean, within hours, she messaged me and she's like, I want a refund. I hate this. And I was like, well, she gave me some feedback. Yeah, it did hurt a little bit. She gave me some feedback that basically she just didn't like me, was really the summary. She didn't say it like that, but she wanted somebody who was much more polished than I am, somebody who wasn't as casual, somebody whose videos had, a consistent slide deck throughout all of them, which isn't me. I'm like, ooh, need new graphics, right? Well, what's hilarious is I was like, hey, here's your money back, and you should check out Tamara Howell, because she teaches all of this stuff. She's very polished. Her stuff is gorgeous. You're going to like that way better. I'm not going to be able to pull that off.
I love that. That's so funny. That's so funny when you were describing it. And I was like, my slide deck is really knowing where to send people. And that's so much the point for me around like when we reject competition and we step into learning about what other people offer, we actually are much better placed to be able to match other people. So,
Yes.
you know, I just use the example of the treatment centers. They can sit on their stand and they can tell everyone what they do, or they can go around all the other stands and learn what all the other treatment centers do. Because when they get an inquiry that isn't a good fit for them, they're going to be in a better position to send them to the right place. And that person's going to learn about them. And it's the same with our private practices as well. It's the same with online business. It's the same with everything. The more we know about other people, the better place we are to be good matchmakers, essentially.
Absolutely. And I think about that with, I think of Laura Long, and she is teaching people to build their practices, and her personality is very clear and distinct. And there are some people who are going to jibe with that personality and some people who aren't. And Laura, very early on when we started talking, she's like, hey, do you want to get inside my course? I'll show you around, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of entrepreneurs wouldn't do that because they'd be like, oh, you're going to steal my material. You're going to get inspiration and duplicate stuff that I've already done. And that wasn't where she was coming from at all. She was like, how are you going to know how to send people to me if you don't know what's in my course, if you don't know what my values are or what I kind of, push hardest?
Wow.
Mhm.
That's amazing. You did that with me as well. I mean, I've never, because I'm always a bit afraid that I'll accidentally absorb too much, And
Yeah.
so I've never been through the whole thing, but you've done that with me. You've been really generous. You've been like, here, have this, here, have this, have a look at step by step, have a look at this, have a look at this, have a look at, and so, I mean, potentially I could go and look at everything. I'm a bit too scared, I think but I mean, I absorb all that stuff from you anyway, so I don't know why. But I think that's really true. That's fair. I think the people that we do business with, the people that we support, the people that we have partnerships with, yeah, we should show them, what's in there. And I think that kind of makes me think about, okay, it's all very idealistic to be like, competition is an illusion, it doesn't exist, but it doesn't mean I don't get a twinge when I see
Sure.
someone who has studied or learned something from me, and then they go and produce something possibly even better than what I made, because it's easier to edit than it is to create from scratch.
Sure.
Or they use better colors or whatever, nicer fonts. So, I mean, it's not that I don't get a twinge, but like, I don't know. I mean, isn't there space for us kind of reiterating that stuff and sharing that stuff and still supporting each other? I don't know,
There does feel like a line for me, and I haven't thought about it enough to quite identify it. But I think about with you are so careful that there's nothing I wouldn't share in my business with you, because I know you and I know your personality. But I wouldn't share with somebody I didn't have some kind of relationship with. I'm not going to be like, hey, here's everything, that I do to a bunch of random strangers. Because I think the anonymity gives people some permission to maybe not be so cautious. Whereas you and I had a relationship, Laura and I had a relationship. And so there's some trust there. And I also think that when you are having financial success and you already have a following, it's a lot easier to be generous around the competition thing than when you're first starting, and you're like, I just need to make any kind of income. And that one person that signs up for my program or chooses somebody else's program is sort of like the make or break whether my program will run this time. So I do think that there's a little bit of like success privilege in being able to be generous.
That's true. Yeah, I think that is true. It's a really good point. And I think also each situation is different. It's all very well just being like, oh, this doesn't exist, and blah, 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 and all this kind of thing. But I mean, it does kind of stink when someone, does something with me and then they go and do the same, like deliver the same thing somewhere else. And I really try to lean towards it. I've had quite a few of these like situations. I really want to talk specifically, but I don't think I can talk specifically. But what can I say? So one thing, I had an idea for something. I paid someone to create it for me because I didn't have time to do it myself on a platform. And so I asked them to create a database essentially. And I designed it and I said what I needed, the tabs and the categories and how I needed everything, blah, 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 blah. And then when they finished it and they handed it over to me, I said, this is fantastic. We should make a template and sell it together. Because
that was very generous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I thought so. And she said, that's cool. I'm going to make it into a template myself and sell it.
Oh, no.
So making a template from something I had paid her to make for me that was my idea, right?
Right.
So I did get into a bit of a tizzy about the whole thing. And I spoke to various coaches, blah, blah, blah. And then I did like with my lawyer, I spoke to my lawyer about it and we had a really good session. And she said, well, you know, if you want to take what she's given you and turn it into a template and make it slightly better, then you can sell it without asking her. And if she wants to do the same thing, she can sell it without asking you.
Oh, that's rough. I would really struggle with, because I know you and I know your brain. And so if you've hired someone to do something, you have conceptualized the whole thing, you've documented the whole thing, and they're doing the minutia work. You've done the brain work.
Right.
And it's not like you don't have the capacity to do the minutia work.
No, I could have done it myself, but I paid someone else to do it quicker.
Yeah, that's a contract.
Hard.
Yeah, that's a pay attention and like make sure your contracts say what they need to say. That's tough.
For sure. And like, I mean, technically I could have argued because I didn't sign their terms and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, I sat with it for a week and then I forgot about it. And then I just thought, are they ever actually going to do it? Am I going to do it? Is this the thing that I want to hang my hat on?
Right.
No. Okay. So maybe they'll make it. Maybe I'll be an affiliate. Maybe I'll sell it and I'll make some affiliate commission on it. And part of my copy will be that, you know, it came about from my idea and I'll say how I use it in my business. And maybe, do you know what I mean? Like maybe there's a way to lean into it. Maybe there's a way. Or maybe I figure out that that person's values don't align with mine and we don't work together again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I think there's opportunity in all of those things. And I've had loads of those situations. Recently, someone bought a course from me. And now, how can I talk about it without saying too much? They bought a course from me, they learned everything, and then they created a sort of a next level product, which is amazing based on what I taught them. But they're going to have to include a lot of the material that I taught in selling the next level product. So, okay, do I want to get upset about it? Or do I want to think like, okay, well, everyone needs that product. You know, it's good for the industry. It's good for the community.
Man, that's so hard. It's very hard to find the line. I had a situation where, you know, I do the free training series every year and I give away a bunch of free stuff, right? And I don't want to get too in the weeds, but
I know it's hard.
Yeah. Someone I know very well took the material that I had created and made their own presentation. And okay, you know, like it's not like the material is completely unique, right? Anybody who's teaching practice building is going to talk about some of these same topics, but the words were verbatim. I mean, verbatim what I said, and then created a freebie that was my freebie. It was exactly my freebie. Now, it wasn't, you know, the most original idea ever. So somebody could have come up with it, but it was literally word for word exactly mine. And this was a friend. And I was like, what do I do here? What do I do? And it did bring up some fear for me because their website was freaking gorgeous, like just beautiful. The sales funnel was beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And now my freebie is just hanging out on their website as a way to get people on their email list. And so I cut that relationship off because I felt really betrayed. And there had been a history of stuff. But what I ultimately came to was I've spent years creating an audience, and this person doesn't have an audience. They have a beautiful website, they have a kick-ass freebie, but they don't have an audience. And so their business never took off. This was many years ago. Their business never took off because they hadn't put in the work of building relationships. They hired out for a beautiful website, which is fine. They stole a freebie, which is not fine. And, it wasn't going to go anywhere because they hadn't put in the work to get there. So that's some of there's a line between there's no competition versus somebody stealing your stuff or stealing your idea, or, that's just, there's a difference. I don't know exactly where that line is, but there is a line.
So I think I can tell where the line is by how I feel when I see it. Mm-hmm. And that's not really a very strict line, is it? That's could depend on how I feel that day and if I've slept and blah, 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 and how I feel about the person and where I am in my cycle and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the line is oh, that doesn't feel good. And so what I do is I check it out. So I'll check it out with you. I'll check it out with other coaches. I'll check it out with other business owners, check it out with my lawyer. I'll pay for that, happy to do that. And I think sometimes going through that process actually brings me to a place of feeling better. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it doesn't. There's some stuff that has happened that I still feel a bit ouch, ouch, ouch. But I think that I usually feel better when I kind of step into it. And also someone recently said, well, if you're invested in it, tell them what is and what isn't okay. Mm-hmm. So then with one of those situations recently, I said, well, actually, I think this is a really good idea, but this is a bit I'm uncomfortable with. Don't use my Facebook groups for market research, please. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to be getting market research from my audience, and that is not your audience. Right. You've got to get it in your own group. Mm-hmm. And that's not me being, it is me being a little bit protective, although I allow quite a lot of promo in my groups compared to others. But that's also about exactly what you're saying. You can make a nice freebie and you can make a nice website. You can be inspired by your work or someone else's work. But if you don't have the relationship with people, there's no one who's going to benefit from it anyway,
Right. And speaking to that, feeling it part, I think, and this is probably just a personality thing for me, is when someone is sensitive to the fact that it might not feel good and they talk to me about it, that feels completely different.
I think I've done that with you a few times.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've talked very transparently about, this part of our business and the overlap and what will we do about that and what will feel good and what won't feel good. Yeah. If somebody is saying I don't want to step on your toes, would this be okay? That's a very different situation than somebody just, taken a freebie.
And being very clear, because sometimes people have approached me and they've said, is it okay if I do this? But they haven't explicitly said, they've been oh, is it okay if I do a workshop? But they haven't said, can I do a workshop that's named exactly the same thing as your workshop? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's actually a really good approach. If you're not sure, ask, have a conversation with someone, I think those conversations are great because when people have them with me, I'm thinking about, okay, well, how does that fit in with my business and my strategy and how can I support them? Because a lot of the time supporting other people, brings people to me as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I think having those kind of conversations, and I think really, if I'm honest myself, even when someone has crossed the line, what am I going to do? It would have to be quite serious and quite impactful on my business for me to invest money at this stage in legal fees.
Right. Especially when, it would have to affect your business, because if they don't have an audience and they're doing these things, it's really not going to affect your business. Usually. I
So
think
really, I think, yeah, I mean, that's not like a license for anyone who's watching this to go and like copy all our stuff. But I think, there's a way of like prioritizing the relationships with our colleagues, with our peers, but also, with our audiences. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to
no,
say?
that's okay. I was just thinking about the Facebook group thing. And if you are a newer entrepreneur, you may
Mm.
not know some of the reasons why Facebook leaders might not want you advertising or doing market research or whatever in their group. And it may feel like, oh, they're afraid of competition. So I do want to speak to that for just a minute
Yeah.
because, and I'm going to just shout out to Allison per year because she had this massive Facebook group when I was just starting, and she's a practice building coach. And I was in the group and I was like a total fanatic about online therapy. And so I was constantly talking about it and I was giving people tips and stuff like that. And it would have been so easy for her to be like, listen, get out of my group. Like, you're clearly trying to get people to buy from you. But the truth was, I didn't even have a product. I didn't have a business idea. I was just like, la, 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 I love all my therapy. Let me tell you all about it, right? And she was so like just assuming the best in me instead of assuming the worst. And she assumed that I was just trying to be helpful instead of assuming that I was coming after her business. And I appreciate that so much because I learned a lot from her about that. And so now when I have time, when somebody does something like that in my group, I try to give them information to help them understand why that's a no-no. And the reason why it's a no-no in most cases is the person who's leading that group, if they sell a product, they've spent years building that group and creating a culture and building relationships to the end of service, but also to the end of selling their stuff. And so when you come in and you sell your stuff, there's a culture of trust in that group, and people are more likely to buy it because of you selling it in the group where they have a lot of trust. And that trust isn't earned for you. You have to earn your own trust with your own audience in your own group. And it's sort of like when you're trying to have a business, it's not just about creating the product. That's the easiest part. It's about creating an audience to sell it to and creating a way of selling it that works. And the audience building is the part that takes the most time. So stepping in and kind of like short circuiting that process by taking somebody else's audience, for me, is a no-no. For me, is a no-no.
I've never actually seen it work as well. Like, I've never seen it work. I've seen people try, and I've always tried to occasionally if I got a workshop or something, I'll go into the other groups and I'll post on their promo threads and whatever, but I'm pretty careful about, like, I would never go into the private practice startup and post paperwork as a promo. And we have a good working relationship, and I would not. So like, I have other things that I could promote in there. I would never go into a group that sells paperwork templates and promote paperwork templates, And so I try to be really thoughtful about how I use those threads, bearing in mind that no one ever reads those threads anyway. So it's a total fluke if your comment comes up on someone's feed as they're scrolling, but it's not to be relied on. And I think, okay, it's worth it for 5 minutes of a fluke sale if you want to, but that's not enough. There's got to be a place where your audience can reach you, where they can talk to you, where they can actually connect with you, other than email. They've got to have a way of connecting with you on a more regular way. And I think that, I notice when people come into my group and they sell the same thing, and I don't mind. I have promo threads. Some groups don't have promo threads, and I totally respect that. And I think the bigger you get, the better that is not to have them. But I have them, and I do kind of notice, and I do sort of think, like, are you just copy pasting, or have you thought about, like, how is that going to serve my group? Because everything I post, every single thing, no matter how vague or like whatever it is, cute or, jokey or whatever it is, every single thing I post in my group, I'm thinking about how is it useful for my group members. And that's what I want from people who are posting on promo posts and answering my posts and things like that, is thinking like, how is this beneficial to this specific group? And I can't tell you that everybody does that.
No, because, and that comes back to, my lighting is changing, so I apologize for that. The sun is moving in the sky. That comes back to like, are you in a place of service, or are you in a place of hustle? If you're in a place of service, you're thinking about those things. If you're in a place of generosity, you're thinking about those things. If you're in a place of hustle, then you're probably not.
Hustle doesn't work in therapist groups.
It sure does not. No, people feel it.
They puts people off, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, and there's nothing wrong with being scrappy and trying to earn money and trying to market as much as possible. But yeah, absolutely. You can feel the intention, can't you? You can feel it in an email. If I'm not feeling my email and I send it out, I get 20% open rate, no clicks.
Yep. Same.
So when I'm feeling like, yesterday I decided, right, I'm going to do a get it done week. We're going to do directory listings. I'm going to open up my old Facebook group. No. And I sent it out, and then I get great open rates because I'm like, you can feel it in the ether,
Yes, absolutely. I feel like I've said all I have to say about this. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Me too. No, I feel like I learned a lot from you on this topic. So yeah, thanks for having me to talk about it.
You're so generous. And you've got to stop saying thanks for having me, because this is a co-effort. So
yeah, but it's on your channel, and I'll never have one. So
it's only on my channel because I have one. If you had a channel, it would be on both of our channels. See,
okay, well,
this is the generous spirit right here. How can you not trust this person, right?
Well, thanks for hanging out with me.
Absolutely. You guys take really good care. We hope to see you in the next episode.